Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel, wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice snowy Saturday morning over here from Helsinki, not Dubai. We had a bit of a weather reversal coming in here and my nose is still recovering. That is not a cocaine reference, by the way. That is simply a reference to the air quality in Dubai. And I swear there's something going on over there and it's definitely doing numbering on me right now. So I do apologize for the probably slurred words that are going to be happening in this video, but I'm going to try my hardest to work through it. So with that in mind, we are going to swing back into the Krown trading application a little bit later within the context of this analysis. It's going to play a major role as always, but it is not relevant for the beginning right here. What is relevant for the beginner, at least what I want to let people know, because I've been getting a ton of questions about this, is the premium features for the Krown trading application. The biggest question is, do you get access to the Jewel Light? Yeah, you do. So there you go. Quite simple. And there's several other features as well, of which I'll make a video on it probably over the weekend, maybe release it sometime next week, describing that for further clarity on the situation. And there's also a lot more features coming in as well. So perhaps maybe it might be better to wait on that, or maybe I'll just make like an ongoing video thread for that. What else did I want to say? Yeah, Instagram. I've been getting more more comments or more messages on Instagram that there are still somehow, some way more, impersonators of my account. I'm never going to message you to trade your account or get you to invest in some obscure thing or join some, I don't even know what the hell they're going off of, to be honest with you. Whatever it is, if it sounds too good to be true, it ain't very likely that it's going to be legitimate. And I can assure you that that is not me to begin with. What else? Yeah. I think that's it for right now. Let's get into the actual price action charts. Let's follow up on the last 3 weeks of that thread of analysis that we've been looking for, essentially starting with that major bounce in late January off the monthly 21 exponential average rate here at about $35,000. Then we said targets up to $41,000 and $45,000 would be relevant. We have hit both of those. We called a pullback down to about 41,500 after that. We've hit that and exceeded that. And that actually does matter quite a fair bit, because that is going to, at least in my opinion for right now, it's going to invalidate any sort of major continuation to the upside in the short term. Now, there is an invalidation condition for that, which is still the same condition as basically validation for continuation to the upside, with targets up not just to $48,000 to $50,000, but very likely, $55,000 over time, which would be specifically a full hour closure above $45,000. Bitcoin's tested it multiple times. It's even closed rather close to it. No closures above, however, and that is why I do look at closing bases as very, 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 very important. And so far that has not been met. So with the advent of the last 24 hours of price action, how does this kind of line up into the weekend, of which I believe it's a holiday weekend? Correct me if I'm wrong, from the people in America over there, as it's either MLK Day on Monday or President's Day. One of those two ones. I'm pretty sure we have a holiday coming up on Monday. So I suspect that over the weekend, we do probably get, within the context of our current price action, a contra move to the week's direction, and that's probably going to be faded when the week opens. So that's a long way of saying probably a bit of a weekend bounce, likely to be unraveled in the next week or two to come. So with that in mind, looking at this, where essentially am I looking for a bounce, or why essentially am I looking for a bounce? Several reasons right here. Am I looking for a bounce? And then we'll get to targets in a second here. But basically, one is that Bitcoin's coming off of the 200 simple on the full hour. Just a nice place to be taking profits if you were shorting the tops right here. On top of that, we do have a full hour Jewel signal right here to the upside. However, this is a very important distinction to be made, and I saw some comments in this on Discord, which seeing some of the interpretations of what I say by people is very, 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 very interesting. But maybe I just don't do a good job of expressing these ideas. But basically, when I see a momentum oscillator up like this with volatility contracting, that to me is a corrective signal until I see volatility rising off the lows, vertical alongside a solid signal as well. And right now we just don't have that. So I look at this corrective signal at best. So corrective signal alongside psychological support, which honestly, psychological support is bullshit in my opinion. It's mostly bullshit. And people who call it out are mostly bullshitters. But sorry, I can't help myself right now. But you get my point, or maybe you don't, maybe you do. Who knows? Anyways, let me actually do this properly from that last high right there. There we go. And so what I've done here is I've taken a bearish Fibonacci retracement from the high to the low of our current range. And we do see that the 382, which is kind of where you expect your more shallow corrections to come to, is right around about 41,500. Do I think that that's possible over the weekend? Yeah, definitely. I do think that at most we see a correction up to about $42,800 to $43,000, kind of the same things what we said yesterday. But here's a key point that I would also add on to this as well. If we do start to see 4-hour closures above about 43, let's say 43,000 bucks, that is, I would say that the downside that I'm going to talk about likely to come in the next week or two is probably going to be invalidated. Or at least it would be invalidated before seeing anything else, specifically happen. Let's also line this up with our stochastic momentum as well. And then we'll talk about why I'm looking for the higher term timeframes to come down a little bit further, and then targets with those. Okay, so I think the 2-day is a good start on this one. 2-day stochastic momentum is nosediving, or it's not nosediving, but it's turning down for the first time in the same area since basically November, early November that is, which led Bitcoin off from its prior all-time high, or its current all-time high actually, at $69,000 to kind of where we're at right now. And that will be remaining with downside momentum as long as we're closing below $45,000. $5,000 move in the next 15 minutes, or sorry, not 15, but 15 hours and 40 minutes and 23 seconds. I would say not very likely, but fair enough. And if we go down to the daily, obviously this one is still going to be nosediving as well as we identified it over the last few days. That was also a key component of judging not to be aggressive with looking for Bitcoin to trade above about $45,000 and get the next breakout, which I feel quite, it's not that I feel quite good about, it's just, it's just data right here. But that was one of the things that we spoke about on, I think it was Wednesday, where it's like, yeah, we have a few signals right here. They still have not been validated. I'd still be looking for, in this case, we were looking for a closure above about 44.5, I think it was, on the daily to catch momentum in order for us to be like looking at, legitimate chances of upside continuation. But the rest of the market, perused around crypto, YouTube, crypto, Twitter, and whatnot, seemed very gung-ho boolah to the moons, right? In this case right here, I do think that this comes down a little bit further. We do see that daily stochastic momentum will turn up above 43,500 or so. Other than that, all of the lower term timeframes I do imagine are probably traveling well far down here. 12-hour is going to be below about 42,500. 6-hour is going to be turning up short term above 40,000. Nice. 4-hour is going to be turning up with any sort of a closure above 39,650. 3-hour is going to be loading above about 39,820. Bi hourly is going to be doing what? It's going to be up above about 39.9, and hourly I'm sure is already up as well. Or maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Yeah, it is. It is up above about 40,135 or so. So, again, short term over the weekend, probably looking for a little bit of a, corrective bounce here, but corrective bounce is not the same thing as reversal, and the higher term timeframes do still remain with, general downside momentum. The problem, or it's not the problem, but the very long term timeframes being the 5-day and the weekly actually still do show upside momentum here. The weekly getting a fresh cross the upside actually, and will be remain with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above 35,700. So juxtaposing all these different timeframes against each other, what does that essentially mean? Very, very short term, similar to yesterday, probably looking for a bounce off this region. I'd say it's still more or less the same thing essentially. Medium term, probably looking for a little bit more downside. The reason being because we did identify daily regular bearish divergence right here. And we do see on the 2-day a couple drives of hidden bearish divergence right there. And on CME's weekly closure, we did identify, or not, we didn't identify, we're just looking at this fresh today, but we did see, what do you want to call this? I think this is the start of probably like a 3 black crows perhaps, but ultimately a couple rejections in this region right here. Gap has already been filled. So, closing below there is, it's kind of like the market accepting that we probably do go lower. And probably base off at like the same mid $30,000 territory as well. So ultimately, I do think that Bitcoin's next move very likely is down. Looking at the 2-day right here, the 200 simple is a very likely target for the, coming into next week, I imagine. I think spot price action is actually different in that equation, but anywhere into the mid $30,000 territory, I think 37.5 is very, very likely. We can actually also draw a Fibonacci retracement right here from the high to the low of that last run, that being this area right here to this area. Whoopsies, that's not how you do that. And that's what I'm talking about, man. My brain is not working properly. And in this case, we do see the 0.5 at about yesterday's low. Let me get rid of this for a second. At 39,336, we already kind of hit 39,400 low of the day yesterday. So so let's say that one's already been fulfilled. The next target would be actually down around about mid 37s ish, let's say. And if I did this properly, then maybe it would actually be right. There we go. And there we go. Yeah, somewhere around about mid $37,000 territory. So at that point, I probably would be looking for another bounce. And can Bitcoin come a little bit further down than that? Yeah, absolutely. I do think anywhere around about mid 30,000, whether it be like 35.5 to 36.5 or so, is kind of where I'd be looking for on a wick. But ultimately, again, I want to be on record as saying that I actually don't think that Bitcoin has significant downside from here. The reason why I say that is due mostly in part to the global open interest. We didn't really see an extreme read on that last high at $44,500 on a closing basis. And that does matter because when you're looking for major downside or major upside, you really want to see, it makes it a lot easier to have essentially like the rocket ship of the rocket ship using liquidity as fuel, represented in leverage positions right here at like an extreme. And we didn't really see an extreme. An extreme would be closer to 14 billion, which we have seen on pretty much all of the local highs before, like 25 to 30% downside or more. And the higher, typically the more severe of a response. And in this case, it got up, I'd say moderately, but not anything critical. So here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the open interest to once again base out somewhere at least around 10 billion. A little bit lower than that would be even better. And so what I've done here, and you can actually do this yourself as well, is to make an alert, which will also put it on your desktop as well. For myself, I want to know when the open interest is below about 10 billion. I also have one here for 8 billion because that would be like a critical read for the downside in my opinion. And then on top of that, we do see that funding rates are already kind of trending negative again. Hourly data feeds a little bit different, to be fair. It is ever so slightly positive, but the daily representing more prolonged time frame. And we can kind of look at this over like the last few weeks here. It's really getting negative for the first time in a while. So obviously if Bitcoin comes down a little bit further, it suggests that the market is already getting a little bit more overweighted on the short side than the long side. And when I say overweighted, that's not the correct terminology. I'm saying that they're being more aggressive marketing those positions, as it's always a 1-to-1 anyways. But in this case, I imagine that if Bitcoin were to come down somewhere around like, 37.5 or maybe 36, something like that, we probably see it, get a lot more exaggerated. That alongside a low open interest read would make me immediately, look for another major bounce. And guess what? That'd actually be rather relevant here because that would be Bitcoin's first higher low in this whole segment since, well, it would be its first higher low basically since way back on over here at like $58,000. But my point is that throughout this whole run from 35,000 to 45,000, no higher lows were put in. I'm sure that someone's going to say this area right here. You could say that area right there, but this, having a low right here and a high right here, when it's typically that close to each other, I don't look at it as relevant or. It's just look, back test these damn statements and decide for yourself. But in my experience, it doesn't really work like that. I look at this as one complex high, and then if Bitcoin comes down, and let's say, let me go to a fresh chart right here. Let's say Bitcoin comes down a little bit more after a short-term bounce, like boom, and then boom, that would be your higher low, and that would be a big deal. And then if Bitcoin does trade above about $45,000 after that on a 4-hour closure, that's to the point where I really look for this market to actually get going to the upside, and probably looking at a target, let's say $50,000, probably even more than that over time as well. All right, cool. I think I've spoken your head off on this early Saturday morning over here. I'm going to be signing off now. Is there anything else what I'm going to mention? Nah. I think that's gonna be it for today. Nice and short and sweet one. Hopefully that was as simple as possible. And I want to wish you well. Hopefully everyone's staying safe in these markets right now. It's been a rather lackluster time, to be fair. Yesterday, even coming below $40,000 for a little bit of time, like didn't really feel all that like threatening, to be honest with you, nor did the upside feel threatening as well. So with that in mind, I'm wishing you well once again. Take care, and hopefully can maximize our time in these next few days here, because I imagine it's going to be rather lackluster. Anyways, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.